Can people see my screen right now?
Yep.
Will you make that not the case? Okay.
Get it going?
It is already going.
So we're broadcasting.
We're broadcasting.
Sweet. Now this does mean we're going to see this little thing. Open it up.
It's just gonna have to.
Well, last time I had it figured out, but I didn't.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to do this. Will you make an announcement at the beginning that as people are leaving to sign in at the back?
Yeah.
And where are your business cards?
They're in the back. Hi there.
I'm Joe Tiseo, Commissioner, District 5.
Oh, Joe.
Yeah, I just came out to...
Yeah, you're newly elected.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So thanks a lot. Are you Peter?
I'm not. I'm Tyler. I work for Peter.
Okay.
Yeah, Peter was unable to make this trip. He had a heart attack.
Oh, wow.
He's recovering well.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
Doctor said no airplane travel for a month. So
Okay.
So you're getting the backup picture today.
Okay,
But,
no problem.
But
I'll be hanging out in the back just listening, just trying to listen to the people.
Great. Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for being here.
Do you have a card?
I do. I placed them all in the back.
Okay,
back
sounds
table.
okay. I'll grab it then. I'm back there anyway.
For sure. And feel free to call, email me if you have any questions.
Will do. Thank
All
you,
right.
sir.
Thank you. What? Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to get started here in a couple minutes. I know most of you have already taken your seats. For those people just coming in, we do have a sign-in sheet in the back. For those of you who have already taken a seat, don't worry about signing in right now, but if you wouldn't mind signing in before you leave today, we will record your email address and send you updates about future workshops. When we are ready to release our first batch of numbers, we will distribute that to our email list. So it's just a good list to be on if you want to follow this project. By my clock, it looks like we have a few more minutes. I'm going to wait a few more minutes, allow other people to come on in, and then we'll get started.
It's about online people not being able to hear the audio, so we're just trying to record.
People are complaining.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the volume needs to come up.
Yeah.
This volume is too low. I'm going to go to the back. All right, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started here. My name is Tyler Buckingham. I am a project manager with Peter Arabella Consulting. For those of you who have been here for our previous workshops, you'll notice that I am not Peter. Peter unfortunately had a heart attack last month, and though he is recovering very well and he expects to be here at the next workshop, by doctor's orders, he was unable to make the trip out here for this particular workshop, so I am filling in. So apologies up front for not being the guru, Peter Arabella, but I will do my best. This workshop today is intended to go over a number of things that, for those of you who have participated in workshops 1 and 2, might be review, though I noticed that as this process has evolved, more and more people have come in, and that's outstanding. That is great. It's important, I think, before we get started, to remember that this is a creative process that we are doing together. Our team of consultants don't sit at a computer somewhere and cook up the solution. The solution is actually something that we create together. Now, we have done this many other times in other communities, so we have some ideas as to what works and what is perceived to be fair, but as I will go over later in the presentation, every community is truly unique, and this one is as well. There are issues on this particular beach management project that are completely unique to Inglewood and Charlotte County and Manasota Key. So we want to hear your opinions, and we want to hear your thoughts and your ideas, and this is a forum for just that. first thing I want to say is we are broadcasting this meeting over the internet, and for property owners and residents who are just not here, it is helpful for them to be able to follow along and participate in the workshop online. So welcome to all of our online listeners. On Thursday's workshop, I walked around with a microphone, and people would ask their questions into the mic. And even with that, folks online, the microphone that goes to the internet is on this computer. So what I'm going to try to do on this workshop is repeat your question or summarize your comment so folks online can more easily follow along with what it is that we're talking about. A little bit about where we are in the process. You are currently in workshop 3. There have been 2 previous rounds of workshops. We got started in October. Over the period of time from then till now, we have done a great deal of data collection, a great deal of learning about this particular community, this particular shoreline, and the challenges and opportunities to get this project done. We are attempting to have a recommendation for the county by the end of April, which means that we will have 2 additional workshops, one in March and then one in April. That will be our forecast to be our final one. If we need to do an additional workshop, we will try to do that. That's something that we'll have to discuss with the county. But I don't want anybody to feel like we're trying to rush this process. We are trying to get it done as quickly as possible because, as I'm sure you all know, the situation at the northern end of Manasota Key, the Charlotte County portion of Manasota Key, is dire. And the sooner we can begin to collect funds and collect revenues in a way that we all agree upon, the better it is for that project to go forward. As I said before, your input matters, and to facilitate that, we have a website dedicated to this project, parkcoastal.com/Manasota. You go there, and you will find updates for all the presentation that I'm delivering you right now is currently posted up there. All updates next month, I'm hoping to hand out to all of you, our first roll of numbers, so you can actually look up your account and see what an assessment might look like. So this is the portal to find all of that information. It's also a place where you can find our email addresses, our telephone numbers. We give these things out. These are our personal cell phone numbers. By all means, call us. We want your ideas. We want your feedback, negative, positive. We don't discriminate. This is at the end of the day, this is not our plan, it's your plan. And you need to, if you have a thought or an idea, by communicating communicating your idea to us, it helps us make sure that those ideas are synthesized into the final plan. So by all means, participate, and we will do our darndest to make sure that this plan reflects the wishes and the ideas of the community. For today, we're going to go over the objective of the effort. We're going to discuss the County Erosion Control Program, what it kind of looks like. There are 3 distinct components of it. We'll go through each one. We're going to discuss the estimated project costs over 30 years. We are looking at this over a long period of time, so we want to go over what those costs are, the various components of those costs. We want to develop the financial foundation for success, and that means that we want to discuss some of the ways that we could perhaps raise this money. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, I'm going to break at each of these sections, and we will have an opportunity for questions, comments. You all can talk. Again, I'm going to do my best to make sure the folks online can hear. I'll be repeating questions. It's a little clunky, but I think it's certainly worth it. And I will stay as long as I can today after this workshop to talk with you all one-on-one. I know that not everybody feels comfortable standing up in front of a room of people and making comments, so by all means, approach me after the meeting if you had an idea or a concern, and I'll be happy to talk with you one-on-one. One thing that I just want to say off the bat is that we have not drafted, planned, created any sort of funding plan yet. One of the things that came up on at Thursday's workshop was concern from West County residents that we were trying to somehow fund this whole program on the backs of West County. That is just not true. I can see why folks thought that because of the renaming and change of the description of that MSTU, the West County MSTU, but I can assure you that that is not something that we think is fair or proper, and that is not an agenda that we wish to use. We want this plan to succeed, and if we propose that to the county, it would be rejected. So by all means, please take my word, that is not something we would do, and it would not succeed. The objective of our effort. We understand that in order for these beaches of Manasota Key, Don Pedro Night Island, and the maintenance of that pass, in order for these projects to be effective, we have to have a stable, long-term financial foundation to support this program. That means that our program has to be, as you will see in a future slide, as persistent as the waves. It also means that we want a broad, robust effort. We don't want to put all of the financial burden onto one group of people, because that is more easily susceptible to failure than if we spread it out and have many different tiers and sources of funds. We also know that we can't cook up the answer. At the end of the day, these are your beaches, this is your community, and the answer will actually come from you. And our job through much of this is to listen and to synthesize your ideas and find that comfortable middle ground where we can all agree that it's a good plan. Maybe it's not exactly what I want, but it's something that we can all get behind. At the end of the day, we want to deliver a recommendation to the county that has those values in it, and we would like to do it by the end of April. We guide ourselves as a consulting firm by a philosophy that the beach is an economic and community asset, that erosion can adversely affect public and private property and damage the local economy. I think we all know that. That beach communities should work together to address erosion as best they can, and that funding streams must be as persistent as the waves, because the ocean just doesn't care that we are meeting today. The ocean just keeps on going. We have successfully worked with a number of communities around Texas, Florida, and North Carolina, basically following the exact same program that we are using here. And we hope to use some of the lessons and secrets we've learned in those past communities to bring success to this one. The first secret that we fall back on is that we have to discover together what is fair. The first thing that happens when a community is confronted with the idea of addressing their coastal erosion problem is to ask for somebody else to pay for it, because it's really expensive. And that is not a problem, but it's something that we have to work through. In fact, we have to find a fair solution to how to pay for this. The funding plan must be fair and equitable in the eyes of most in the community. For the community, by the community. That is our objective. The funding process must be transparent, have wide participation, and be flexible in exploring options. This is what we're doing right now. On Thursday's meeting, I heard concerns. Those concerns, I can promise you, will be reflected in our final recommendation. That is what we are doing here. We are taking your ideas and your concerns and your thoughts as to how to make this effective and putting them into our report. And finally, we want to create a funding recommendation that the county commissioners can adopt, that they feel comfortable adopting, that's politically viable, that's fair for the broader community. And before I go any further, I do want to acknowledge that we actually have District 1 Commissioner here, Joe Tezio, I believe is how to pronounce your name. Joe, if you want to stand. District 5. Thank you, Joe, for being here. The second secret that I think we all know intrinsically, but it's important to remember, is that each community is unique. I can't go and dust off our funding recommendation from Topsail Beach, North Carolina. It's a great report. They have a great program. It's working wonderfully for them. But they're an entirely different community than we are here. It's an entirely different project. So there's no one size fits all. As a community, we have to realize that we're in this together, that everyone actually does have a stake in the health of the beach and shoreline, if not because you live or go to the beach, but because our economy and our local counties' taxes are greatly impacted by the beach and the shoreline. And finally, that our history here really matters. Y'all have been participating in the MSTU, the West County MSTU for Stump Pass for years. And folks on Don Pedro Night Island have been paying into an MSBU to renourish their beach. We want to be very rock solid with the fact that we acknowledge that these programs have been in existence and that in fact, over the years, they have in some way, shape, or form grown to be inadequate. And that brings us to why we are actually here today and looking at this broader picture. When the county initially reached out to our consulting company, the issue at hand was strictly Manasota Key, the Charlotte County side of Manasota Key. And as we began to dig into the community history, we realized that there were actually two interconnected, very closely related projects, that were already in existence. And one of the things we're trying to do to minimize costs and create more efficiency is to bring all of these programs into an integrated system. Secret number 3, and I alluded to this earlier, is the earlier we can start saving, which means planning ahead for our program, the cheaper it'll be and the more effective the program will be. Time is money. If we build this beach over a comfortable period of time, it will be less burdensome on all of you, on the whole county, in fact. Start saving early. We know that this project is 2 to 3 years away. We want to start collecting as soon as possible. We want to minimize debt financing so that we don't have to pay interest. We want to maximize our state contribution so that we don't have to just shoulder this as a local community. And we want to use the mechanisms at hand, MSBUs, municipal service benefit units, and taxing units to raise local funds in a way that is fair. Beach management, I like to use this analogy. It's like putting a roof on your home. If you put a roof on your home 5 years ago, you're probably not thinking about putting a new roof on. You know that sucker is going to last you 20 or 30 years. But you do know that eventually you will have to put a new roof on that house. Beach maintenance is similar. We are not going to pump sand onto the beach one time and call it a day. We will pump sand onto the beach, and the ocean will slowly transport that sediment away, and or a storm might come and not so slowly transport it away. But we need to plan for those things, and we need to know that this is a maintenance project. It's no different than having a fire department or planning for the roof on your home. Secret number 4. This is a really important one. Avoid the perfection trap. There is literally no such thing as a perfect plan. I can promise you, if you think you came up with the perfect plan, I can find somebody else in this community who has problems with it. It's just the nature of being a community. So these are complex programs. The discussion and debate, as we saw on Thursday, can get emotional. People do not want to be subject to an unfair program. However, we need to work towards something that is acceptable to us all. It might not be perfect, but think about yourself as a member of the community and remember that we can do this. The best rule, avoid the perfection trap, find a reasonable funding solution that works for you and move forward to implement your beach program. I can't say this enough. This is truly your program. This program will not resemble or look like any other program in the United States of America. Secret number 5, build broad funding coalitions. As much as I would like to say that the federal government is going to come in and just pay for this project, they're not going to do it. It would be a snowball's chance in hell that would happen. But we can get some money from the state of Florida, and we know that we can probably get some money from Charlotte County, and we know that we can look toward beachfront property owners and off-beach property owners and visitors to this beach and this area. So we want to build a broad base that draws on funds from many different sources. And I'll tell you why this is important. In the event of the worst case scenario, a storm comes and parks itself off the shore for a few days, and we really need this fund to be working. We don't want this fund to be strictly tied to property values. What if the property values took a hit for a couple of years and our fund is too low? We want to make sure that we're pulling funds from many different sources so that this fund is stable and able to weather storms. Secret number 5, and this is the peace of mind secret that I think is incredibly important. We do not want to build a beach program that does not give us FEMA eligibility. FEMA eligibility means that if a storm comes and erodes the beach that we all worked so hard to build and paid to build, FEMA, because we are FEMA eligible, will come in and write us a check to rebuild it right where it was before the storm. That's peace of mind, and that's a safe investment. That's insurance. So the purpose is to protect the community's investment, ensure project is eligible for federal reimbursement if sand is lost in a hurricane. And there's a couple ways we do that. We do that through monitoring, which we have to pay for. We're building this into the plan, but it's worth it. We want to have a monitoring program. We need to maintain the beach, meaning we can't just do one renourishment. That is not maintaining it. Michael Poff, our outstanding coastal engineer that the county has retained, has designed a program where renourishment takes place every 8 years. Every 8 years. So he's done the math. He knows how much sediment moves down the beach. He knows if we put so many 100,000 cubic yards on the beach, it'll take 8 years to bring it back down to a level where we're not at empty. If you think of it like your gas tank in your car, you don't want to run it all the way down to empty. You lose all your storm protection. So we want to run it down to maybe 50% and then build it back up again. And finally, we need a beach fund that isn't just designed for a single one-off event or one-off activity. We want to look long-term. That's why we're looking at 30 years. Secret 7, increase and dedicate the revenue to the beach fund. We need to build a fund that does one thing and one thing only. We are not in the business of paying for beach cleanup, lifeguards, beach patrol, or other related beach costs. We're not going to be buying sheriff's cars, or that's not what this program is for. This program is focused on managing the erosion on Charlotte County beaches. And we want to make sure that what it is that we are raising funds for, and that when y'all write your check every year to this program, you have the utmost confidence that those funds are going exactly where we say they are. And that is something we intend to build into this program. We're not going to do questions on this one because we're just getting started. The County Erosion Control Program. The County Shoreline Program, a comprehensive effort to manage and maintain the county's beach and shoreline assets. There are 3 distinct parts of this program. There's the Manasota Key Beach Renourishment Program. This involves pumping sand from off in the Gulf onto Manasota Key. There is the Stump Pass Management and Maintenance Program. Y'all, this has been going on for years. This is the project where they dredge out Stump Pass, that navigation channel. They put the sand on either side of the channel. And this project benefits, I mean, one of the things that kind of slipped my mind at the last workshop on Thursday is this project benefits the inner waterways. By keeping that pass open and free, water is able to move in and out, and that is good for the environment, that is good for boating and fishing and all the other recreation that takes place outside, inland from the Gulf, on the bay side. And finally, the Don Pedro Night Island Beach Renourishment Project. This is a separate beach renourishment project on the Don Pedro Night Island side. Now here's the important thing to think about with this program. The Manasota Key Beach Renourishment Program and the Don Pedro Night Island Beach Renourishment Program can be done together to save cost. We can bring in one crew, and they can pump sand onto both of those beaches nearly simultaneously, and by so doing, reduce the tremendous expense of mobilizing a crew to come out to do our beach. We don't want to do that two separate times. We want to do that one time to save funds. Let's go into the Stump Pass project a little bit. It's a dredging project. It happens every 4 years. Every 4 years, it removes about 200,000 cubic yards of sand. That sand is placed on the north and south side of the pass. This is coming up. In addition, and this is new, this will be starting up in the next couple months, I understand from Michael Popp, they will be constructing a rock permeable groin. Permeable meaning some sediment will be permitted to pass through it, but it will slow the amount of sediment that gets into the pass. And this will be at the southern tip of Stump Pass Park, State Park, right there. It's a rock groin to jetty that will extend out into the ocean and slow that sediment transport. Don Pedro Night Island project. This is a beach fill. It occurs every 8 years. 260,000 cubic yards of sand. It's coming in from the Gulf. We don't have enough sand nearby. We've got to bring it in from the Gulf. It's integrated with the Manasota Key project, as I just said. South Beach fill volume under development. We are still working on the exact particulars of what this looks like with Michael Popp, though we're narrowing in on it. Of course, the placement from Stump Pass goes right there on both sides of the pass, and this is extremely important. This particular project is eligible for a state cost share. I'm going to back up real fast because this is an important detail. One of the things that the state of Florida has a program to do is to share in the cost of beach renourishment on critically eroding beaches, like we have here. By creating a singular program, in other words, tying the Manasota Key project, Stump Pass project, and the Don Pedro Night Island project together, we actually score higher on the state cost share. We save more money. This is one of the major reasons why we advise doing this. The Manasota Key project is 570,000 cubic yards of sand. It's quite a bit larger than either the Stump Pass project and to compare an apple and an apple, the renourishment project on Don Pedro Night Island. This will include a one-time hard bottom mitigation. As y'all who are familiar with that beach know, especially in the northern area where that rock revetment exists, there's quite a bit of exposed rock hard bottom up there. That exposed rock hard bottom was caused by beach erosion and the installation of that rock revetment. Unfortunately, the state of Florida recognizes that hard bottom. I shouldn't say unfortunately, it is a fact that has become habitat for a number of fish and critters and sponges, etc. So before we can fill that in and put sand on top of it, we will need to mitigate that. And Michael Popp, I learned yesterday, had gone out. They had sent divers down to examine that exposed hard bottom. And they determined, very fortunately, that they did not discover any sort of endangered species. So that will save us quite a bit of money on that mitigation. However, that is a major one-time cost that we will have to confront. There's design and permitting, as I mentioned before, monitoring, operation and maintenance. Again, it's an 8-year renourishment interval. You'll notice that 570 cubic yards of sand is larger than 428,000. The reason for that is that gas tank analogy I used before. Right now, Manasota Key is running on empty. We're at E. That 570 is going to pull us up to full. And then once we work our way back down, we're going to put about 428,000 back on. The idea is that we don't go back down to empty where we have no storm protection again. And again, this project is eligible for state cost share. All right. So those are the three programs. At this point in time, I would like to open the field up to y'all if y'all have a question or comment or anything you'd like to say off the bat. Sir?
Yes, as Charlotte County approached Sarasota County, as far as our intention or the county's intentions in possibly doing a group effort, joint effort, as far as the Minnesota Key project, because Charlotte County only goes, say, halfway between Eaglewood Beach and Blind Pass.
That's an excellent point. So, yes, in fact, there is talk and discussion right now of coordination. However, Sarasota County is significantly further behind than we are here in Charlotte County. And what that means, and let me pause real fast and rephrase your question for folks online. Your question was, is there coordination between Charlotte County and Sarasota County on this beach program? The answer is, it's in discussion. Sarasota County is much further behind in this process than Charlotte County is. Sarasota County is currently in the process of gauging public interest to see if folks are even interested in doing this type of thing. Whereas there have already been a couple years of work put in to this most recent effort in Charlotte County. What I can tell you is, if 2 years from now, Sarasota County steps up and says, we're ready to do this, let's get on board, I would say, by all means, let's get on board. But for folks right now on the northern end of Minnesota Key and the Charlotte County side, we can't, it's not prudent to wait. We don't know what's going to happen. And to wait for that kind of unknown is, I don't think, the most responsible path. What is responsible, though, is if they did come to the table and said, we'd like to coordinate, we absolutely should do that, because that will dramatically increase our state cost share. We get extra points for working with multiple counties on a beach program. So that is something that in the future I would like to see happen, but I think it's probably a couple years away. Anybody else? The question is, does that mean we would do the entire beach even though it's in Sarasota County? The beach fill program that we are discussing today is strictly the Charlotte County side. We are not putting, Charlotte County taxpayers are never going to be asked to pay for a Sarasota County bill. Well, the question is, how will Sarasota County not participating in a beach fill program affect Charlotte County's beaches in the event that Charlotte County does renourish? And the answer is the longshore beach sediment transport here runs from north to south, as we all know. So really, should Sarasota County step up, it would benefit Charlotte County tremendously. By them not stepping up, it doesn't really hurt us. We would like for more sand to be moving through their system. It would, of course, mean that more sand moves down to us. But the short answer to your question is there's no direct effect by them not participating. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have two questions, but I think they're fairly short. The first one deals with the FEMA eligibility. Is that if you use the term storm and you use the term hurricane, does that have to be in a situation where there is a declared disaster? And if so, is that a federal declaration, state?
That's an excellent question. One of the things that was requested at the last workshop was that I get the actual FEMA language distributed to all of our listserv, and I'm going to do that. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to get back and reread the various specifics. It does require a declaration of emergency. I am not sure at what level it needs to be filed and the exact paperwork. What I do know is that a small storm, which, as we all, what I do know is that it is possible to get hit hard and have a highly erosive event and not get FEMA funds. But I also know that these things are very political, and if there's a great deal of hardship and there's a great deal of political pressure put on our governor and our county, then it's not impossible to get an emergency declaration declared. In fact, it happens all the time. So I don't want to deliver the false promise that every time the surf gets a little higher and you experience higher erosion, that FEMA's going to come in and rebuild it. But I do know that if it's a major event, it's very likely they will. That is the current policy, and that is a policy that they have instituted to encourage local communities to be proactive in renourishing their beaches. So it's not something that I would anticipate them backing away from. To answer your question, one more.
The second piece of my question was, if there was a severe erosion situation, and last summer we had that, and I don't believe we have declared that, is it possible that the nourishment could be similar than the second phase would be similar than 8 years, or is the 8 years?
The question is, in the event of a major erosive event, would the renourishment be on the same 8-year cycle, or would it be moved up? And the answer is, in the case of a FEMA-eligible storm, it would happen damn near immediately. What you should also know is that we are planning years and years into the future. And it is very possible that right now we're thinking about an 8-year timetable. It's very possible that we put sand on the beach and Michael Poff's best estimate is wrong. Instead of eroding at 4.5 feet per year, maybe that erosion rate creeps back down to 1.5 feet per year. And we don't have to renourish in 8 years, we get 12 years. That would be a good thing. There's also the possibility that we put sand on that beach and the erosion rate somehow ticks up. And instead of 8 years, we think 6 years needs to happen. These things happen. We are forecasting years in the future. That could happen in cycle 2 or 3. What I can tell you is that by building a program, this program is not intended to be static for 30 years. We are doing our best effort to forecast accurately deep into the future. But I could not tell you what a Ford F-150 is going to cost in 30 years. I can't do it. I don't know. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but what we can do is make good judgment decisions based on historical trends. And fortunately, we have over 50 years of beach renourishment projects that we can base our estimates off of. And that is how we compose those estimates. To answer your question very specifically, those intervals are movable. And in fact, we would not advise the county go ahead with the project on time just for the sake of being on time. We would prefer that the county adjust that interval based on need. That is a better way to go. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
You looked at the cost on combining these 3 projects. You got a total cost on the top of your head.
Yes. Well, again, the costs we are still in the process of formulating that. But what I can tell you is for the total cost for all 3 projects over 30 years is about $162 million.
So the initial cost, you're saying 8 years, which I don't happen sooner than that. We won't get into the nice 8-year cycle. We could be looking at going from 5.2 million right now, today, some past, jumping to 20 million next year, or when we do Minnesota Key and also the islands. We could be looking at $20 million bridge job. You work in North Carolina, you know that. You work at Top Sail, you work at a couple of places up there, all having friendly problems. There's no end. This place is escalating so bad.
Well, I'm not exactly sure what your question is, but I do want to address the idea of forecasting costs.
Am I right or wrong? Could I be close to saving $20 million for these 3 projects next year?
No. We would. Let me repeat the question. The question is, could we be tremendously wrong in the next 2 years to the point where we're $20 million short than where we need to be?
Sure. I'm saying if you take 575
Sir.
cubic yards, you're going out 3 miles in the Gulf, that's where your borrow is. You know this one site. The pumps are ground grid, supported. Now you're into open water grid. A lot different than what we're doing with Stump Pass. power into ocean certified vessels. And the cost estimates, it's $3 million just to bring in the machine. But I'm here, I'm up at the other dredging jobs. It's $3 million.
The way I want to address your point is that you're not wrong. This is a very expensive. Okay, sir. Allow me to address your point. You make a fair point. We have an answer to that. The answer is there are dozens, hundreds of beach renourishment projects that involve going offshore and sourcing sand offshore deep in the Gulf that happen all over the country. And we know, based off of all of those projects, what the market is for a dredge. We know what the market is to pump it in. We know how this goes. Now, can prices fluctuate? Can they go up or down? Of course they can. But we do our best in producing these cost estimates, and we build in a contingency factor into these cost estimates to protect you, the taxpayer, to protect the community from a major shortfall. That is something that we are trying to protect you against. I'm familiar.
They took Snow Pass, they added 200,000 cubic yards to it, pumped it on paper. It was part of that project. The price went from $5 million to $55 million.
That was a mobilization cost, and the county. Yeah, I'm familiar with this. I take your point. I take your point. Do we have any other questions? Right here in the back. Yes.
I'm concerned with everything that has been brought forward thus far is we're going to be using public tax dollars to renew the beach. Okay, that's a given. Somehow it's going to be put through. I have not heard once, this is my second meeting, anything that's putting into the plan for public access to this new public beach. The meeting I attended previous said that the new renourishment is going to be a control line established, that will be public access or public beach. Nowhere in this plan have I heard how Joe Public is going to be able to access this point. Where are the roads going to be opened up? Where's the public parking going to be opened up? This is just fraught with failure.
So the comment is that this project involves pumping sand on the beach, and so doing we are dramatically expanding the public beach, which, sir, I think is something that you would acknowledge as being a positive thing. But you would like to see more public access. And, sir, I think that is something that has been floated by members of the community. Michael Poff is certainly aware. The Beaches and Shores Committee has heard this as well. Let's remember what it is that we are here to discuss. This is a funding plan workshop. We are here to discuss the erosion control mechanism through these three projects. Now, I would greatly encourage the community to continue to work on increasing public access. If that's something the community wants to do, it would improve your state cost share. However, for the purposes of building a robust program today, we can't sit and wait for the ideal amount of public access and parking, et cetera, to go in. So, sir, I agree with you. I think that is something that should continue to go forward, and I'm happy you brought that up. I'm gonna proceed now into the next section. The case for shoreline management. Oh yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. It's not a grant. It's a program that the state of Florida runs. It is subject to an annual appropriation. So it just like with the FEMA program, it could change. I must admit that the program can change. However, and again, this is something that we have discussed and I think as a community we need to be upfront with, that as the years go by and as this program, this state share program continues, it's very important that you call and communicate, as I believe Andy is here, as members of your community have done, and call up your representatives and your state senators and let them know that this is a program that actually needs more funding and that it's a program that is very meaningful for your ability to manage your shoreline. That is something that, as the years go on, is a battle that needs to be fought. Now, it is a competitive program. There is more beach renourishment demand than there are funds available. However, if your project scores at 39%, and we're trying to do this over 8 years, the state, you've got 8 tries. That's not this is a critically eroding beach. I personally believe, in my best professional judgment, that the state of Florida is going to come through for you. But that does not mean you can be complacent. It does not mean that there could be a year where this beach doesn't get the funding, and then the following year it may get it. There may be beaches elsewhere in the state that are deemed to be more critical. But over the course, per cycle, I believe that it is reasonable to think that this beach will qualify. Can I catch you at the next one, sir? Yes, sir.
You say at the beginning that West County would not be shouldering the lion's share.
Yes, yes, sir.
That's my question. Is it county-wide? In other words, if I live in South Polk Cove, am I going to be paying more than somebody who lives in East County?
Well, we haven't decided anything yet. What I can tell you right now is the only thing that we right now are thinking would be fair for West County to contribute into is the Stump Pass TU, which has been in existence for quite a while. Now, one of the things that I've heard a lot of, and I actually think is a point that needs to resonate throughout the county and needs to be vetted and given daylight, is the idea of a county-wide contribution to this program. I think that is something where the public benefit, absolutely. We know that the county as a whole benefits from this shoreline. Economically, we know that people recreate there. We know that people, when their grandkids come and visit, that they go to the beach with their grandkids. And I understand that, and that is something that is in the forefront of my mind. But what I also want to say is that we also understand, having done this many times, that there is a political reality of asking somebody inland in the county to pay an equal amount, let's say, as someone who's right next to the beach or in closer proximity to the beach, or somebody especially who's right on the shoreline. So what we're trying to do is demonstrate to the county that, first and foremost, beachfront homeowners are on board. And then that Manasota Key, the island, the Charlotte County side of the island is on board. And then that West County, and hopefully we can even go beyond the Myakka River and get the whole county involved and them to understand the public benefit, the economic benefit of the project. But we truly do believe that progression from project site outwards, inland, is necessary to politically do this. If we put the cart before the horse, it is a surefire way to have this thing defeated, lickety-split. So we need to be very careful. Now, I would ask that I circle back, please.
Because on December the 13th, Fort County Commissioners had an ordinance in where it specifically states the whole burden falls on West County. It doesn't say it's going to go out to East County. We didn't consider that. They passed an ordinance that says it falls on West County.
I understand that, and I think this came up on Thursday as well. I think there's a little bit of confusion about the renaming. There was a sentiment that came up loud and clear, and I personally will take responsibility for not communicating in the last workshop why that happened and what we were doing when we made that recommendation. The fact of the matter is that these programs are complex, and you need them to fund the net required programs in case of the Stump Pass every 4 years. Now, I can tell you that program, the current MSTU, the West County MSTU, that without that change is funding enough money to pay for, on average, to pay for the project that Michael Popp has designed for it. However, there are some years when it's lower. It's tied to property values, as you all know.
property values decrease for some reason, maybe there's a storm, those funds will go down. So one of the things that we wanted to think about when we did this is to try to frame these taxing districts in such a way that in a fat year, a year where maybe the fund is larger than it needs to be, that funds can be spread out so that projects can go forward. I think that is an important and fair thing to do, because the worst thing that can happen is that you're not able to engage in the renourishment activity on time. That is not acceptable. But ma'am, I want to address your point head on. In no way, shape, or form, will we make a recommendation to the county to have that West County TU with that boundary and that mechanism used to shoulder this project, these three projects. That is not what we're thinking at all.
You may not make a recommendation, but the ordinance is here. So my question is, what's your recommendation for the county? Do your recommendation again or fail?
I believe the county will listen to our recommendation. All right. Thank you for that comment. I know that there is some heartburn about the timing of that. And yes, please do.
I actually made a point during the commissioner comments that it should go beyond West County. And I made the point that for 35 years, it should go down to Wood Beach. And I live here, I-75. And I said, I didn't personally have a problem living out there paying some type of proportionate share towards the beach. But the whole idea was that tiered approach. I would never vote, I can pledge that right now, to have this whole burden fall within the line of that ordinance. But that ordinance also says that we didn't vote to fund it, or we just voted to create the boundaries as a starting template, because I believe those boundaries were there before, part of the some past strategy.
That is correct.
Yeah, so we just renamed it, and yes, it's true, it did add beach renourishment, because we're looking for a comprehensive solution to the problem that we have. So I mean, what I said to the guys, I can tell you all today, but I degree confidence, that I'm looking for a tiered approach, whatever the statutes will allow, go beyond just West County and the map we approved, to go out to East County. That, if you go back and listen to the tape, that was the exact point that I made. And I think I might have said if I had to pay 10, 15, or 20 bucks a year as some type of MSTU or countywide solution, I would have no problem doing that. And I would try to sell it to my district, which is in East County. So that's what I'm talking about.
Thank you very much.
And that's right, we would have public hearings, set that down, public hearings. What we're trying to do is get to a number that really we can get our arms around, so we know what we got. So we're trying to start out, and this is like Tyler said, this is the starting point. The number one, learn the scope of the problem. And the funding solution is critical. I can tell you right now, even though I don't work for only 2 months, part of the legislative team, and beach renourishment was just brought before legislative representatives just this week, and we are flying, one going to Tallahassee, we're also going to Washington, D.C. in the next couple of months as the legislative session is on right now, and beach renourishment is in our top 3 priorities. So we are out there trying to look for funds to help augment whatever funding mechanisms we get locally. But this is a heavy lift right now. Trying to figure out how do we get there. And I don't think since I've been here for 35 years, there really was a comprehensive plan for renourish the beach. And I've been in business. One time I gave at the end of the year, I had my tax plan. Yeah. You have to figure out the forecast what you're going to do, and I'm looking at it for a year at a time. But we have to be practical and look at this thing like Tyler said over the long haul. Because we never had any major problems over the 35 years until now. We have some major problems. Houses in jeopardy, that part is right at the forefront. Another thing like that, we've got some people's houses floating away, real problem. We could kick the can down the road without addressing it, just trying, patch things as we go. But, for me, a comprehensive solution and trying to hold the county, I think is key, because we can sit here forever and talk about the benefits that West County gives the entire county. The bed tax, tourism, and everything else is part of the essence of who we are. you might notice that not one commissioner had it's a community-wide solution. And as this project comes before the board, I would pledge to you again today that I will talk about East County in no uncertain terms. That's my opinion. That's how I think. But we have to get feedback from you guys. And that's why I'm here. You don't want to hear these things. I go back and walk my comments and say, hey, look at the people in the room. You're not here.
The thing you need to correct to start with, that you mentioned earlier, is stop getting negative comments out to the community. It's not active. We need to do a better job of communicating with the residents of the West Shore of the entire county.
Yeah.
And that's not happening.
Yeah, I'll disagree. This is a new process for the commissioners that have been there. We've never had a comprehensive plan like this. And we're trying to be practical about it and improve about the planning. I think that's why we have the consultants come in to help us, because none of us in the staff are professionals in a major teaching area program. So this is new to us too. And some of the senior commissioners that have been there, it's a learning curve right now. So, some of the information that they can get out may not get out the way we want it. But again, that's why I'm here. That's why the commissioners are going to listen to feedback.
The residents become wary when you see little leaks in the paper that may or may not be accurate.
Yeah. And I learned my short term as a commissioner. Believe about half of what you read in the paper. The other half is, it's facts mixed in with opinion. It's a mix. No disrespect to newspaper figures. That's the reality.
I think that's the reason, I'm a association, a homeowners association. I think what happens is you pass this ordinance, and it specifically states only the property line west of my house. If that is not factual, if that's not what we all wanted, why is it so urgent to do that? Because when we come to see this, we immediately said, what? Because we were never told about it.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Today, and it does say that in the section. Define the boundaries.
Yes.
And it did say for some tasks and for the beach renourishment program. But I think we're just starting out as well. This is step A. Let's define the area that's affected. Now, I think that map again, Tyler was correct. That was already existing for some tasks.
That is correct.
Yeah, it's the same map that was there, but just adding beach renourishment. But in the same ordinance, I believe it says that we have to establish the rate.
That's right, it says the rate has been established within the Board of County Commissioners will establish.
Right.
And I understand that part, but what it does say is that it gives all in the line, the cost burdens of the line in West County, and it says that it does include the new integrated shoreline management system, and any previous debt can be included in that. I don't know exactly. And for other communities.
I can address some of these concerns.
What I'm saying is, if you weren't ready to do that, then you can see why the people in West County, you're a little alarmed, because this ordinance has that it is like.
And I'm not going to disagree with that.
It's-
It does say what it says.
Well, I just want to point out that it's, it is entirely reasonable to be alarmed by the way that that was unveiled. And sir, I think your point is right on the money. If I read that in the paper, I would be alarmed too. What I'm asking for this group to do is to realize that that's not a viable funding plan. And we want to create a viable funding plan so that this project can actually go forward and so that we can actually save the beach. And so, for one, we have no interest in doing that as a team. The county has no interest in doing that either. It's politically not viable. So, no, ma'am. What I'm saying is that you're taking one of 3 special districts that we are currently working to create. We are also considering and hoping for and pushing for and looking for an opportunity to expand this to a county-wide or some sort of county-wide contribution. We are looking for that. We're looking for that avenue. I'm sorry?
Expand it first. I mean, if nothing happens to this here, that. And instead of hoping for, wishing for, looking for.
I hear that, and that will be, all right, that will be in our report. That will be in our recommendation.
We all understand that we have benefits for it, how it benefits everyone within the county.
I hear you.
We are on the hook for 100%, not anyone else, just West County, as long as it's allowed.
Yep, I understand that concern, and you know, we're not looking to do that, and if what it requires, excuse me.
And listen to your comprehensive plan, then take it out to everyone in the county, make their decision. But right now, when you say you're not for items in it.
I hear you.
This is putting everybody in the county on the hook.
Okay, I hear you. I would like to move on, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to move on. I did receive a comment online that I have not been doing a good job of repeating questions and comments. So I would ask that we try to maintain some order so that folks who are not with us but participating remotely can follow along. The next section that I'd like to talk about is the case for shoreline management. Why does this whole project make sense? It's awfully expensive. Why should we even do this? Well, we start with the idea that there are public and private benefits to a beach. The public benefits, as we just discussed, they stretch far and wide. It's a community park. Thousands upon thousands of people come to Englewood Beach every single year, every single season, to recreate, to enjoy the beach. They stay in hotels, they pay taxes, they go to restaurants, they go to movie theaters, they help our economy. There is a serious public benefit. The beach also protects our infrastructure. It's a protective barrier. It protects that park. It protects Englewood Beach. Of course, it's the foundation of our entire tourism economy. I think the whole state of Florida pretty much realizes that. Of course, it drives the real estate market. A big, healthy beach is more desirable, even for folks who are inland. The real estate market is impacted by the presence of a healthy shoreline. Of course, it expands, therefore, the tax base, and it increases public revenue via tax dollars. The private benefits of this beach project are that it will protect homes. And for folks who are on the northern side of the Manasota Keys Charlotte County stretch, this is dire. They really need protection. It will increase their private property values. It will increase the amount of rental income they can get. It will enhance the recreational experience for those people and for their renters. It provides a spiritual benefit. And it is a great place for young and old to play in the sand. I think this is, we get, as we do a funding workshop, we're going to get caught up in the heat of numbers. But let us remember that as the commissioner said, folks who live here and folks who own property here and folks who visit here think of that beach and pretty much associate that beach with this place as one thing. And that's important for us to remember. So we've got dual benefits of the beach, and we know that a successful funding strategy must reflect both those private and public benefits. Beach funding plans run into trouble when the public benefits of the beach are emphasized without recognizing the private benefits. This is really important. I do believe in my heart that if we did not create a funding solution that showed the fact that there are private benefits to this beach and just ignored that and placed the burden only onto the public, even if it's the state of Florida as a whole or Charlotte County as a whole, that is not a fair and equitable solution because there are private benefits. Likewise, if we put the full burden onto the beachfront owners, the private beneficiaries, the island dwellers, we are not giving due credit to the public benefits of the beach inland and to the broader economy of Charlotte County. So a successful funding plan must recognize and reflect that everyone has a stake in a wide, healthy, stable beach, the public and the private sectors alike. The beach and the economy. We all know this. We all know this as people who live here. Healthy, well-managed beaches and shorelines and passes contribute to a healthy economy. How many millions of dollars come into the county for people who are boating, fishing, going on the beach, boogie boarding with their kids, etc., etc. We know that this is a major economic driver. And a stable beach, therefore, will create a more stable economic environment. You're not worried that a storm comes in and wipes out your whole season. Tax revenues go down, programs are cut. A well-maintained beach means a stable, more reliable economy. Financial stability is a must for shoreline stability. That's why we're looking at 30 years. That's why we're looking at FEMA eligibility. And that's why we want stable revenues. And that's why we are not interested in putting the burden onto West County. That is just not a stable foundation. I want to refer back to the public and private elements of the funding plan from Secret 5. We know that we can build a broad coalition. We know that we have the state of Florida in at 39%. We know that within Charlotte County, we can probably get some funds there. We know that the beachfront property owners will want to build, want to pay for this project in a fair way. We know that off-beach property owners will want to pay for this project in some way. And we know that we should try as best we can to get visitors to this beach to contribute to this project as well. That is critical. They use it, they can contribute as well. We are currently studying, the question is, for folks online, what percentage of parking fees will go to this project? We are actually currently in the process of studying the Inglewood parking fee revenues and seeing if that could possibly be a revenue source. Don't have an allocated percentage yet. Let me hold off on questions until this section is complete, and then we'll circle right back around. We'll do questions. One of the things that I think is very important to cover off the bat is that the likelihood of getting federal funding assistance for this project is basically zero. It's unfortunate. I know we would all like the Army Corps to come in and rush to our aid, but it would require an actual act of Congress. And it's not to say that we don't want to try. Trying is always good. It does happen from time to time, but it's akin to winning the lottery. So as a responsible funding plan, I would not say go out and just get federal funding. You would wait a long time and houses would probably be in the ocean. Very recently, in 2012, the Army Corps of Engineers reviewed and rejected the Manasota Key funding, Manasota Key Renourishment Project. So as of 2012, we are not in a position to get federal funds, and we don't anticipate that changing anytime soon. Okay, before I get into the 30-year cost progression, or projection, I would like to give an opportunity to do more questions. Again, remember, I've got to read them back. I don't want any more people online getting upset. Sir, you right there in the blue. It's a great point, sir. I think that parking revenues, bed tax revenues, any way that we can somehow capture tourist use of the beach and shoreline is something that we need to look at, and we need to see if we can get our hands on it. Again, this is a process that requires looking into the budgets. As you know, as you all know, a good chunk of your tourism revenue goes to building the ballpark, the training facility, and that money is spoken for until 2028. So immediately off the top, we have that to contend with. So it's an excellent point. It was actually one of the first things that, in fact, in workshops 1 and 2, Peter was very, we want to see a greater contribution there, but I can tell you right now that it's not as straightforward as just going and there's statutes, there's ways that has to be done. It's something we are investigating very seriously. We want to see a way to capture visitor usage of the beach and visitor benefit of this project. No question about it. Sir in the front.
The first two questions. First one's yes. have you ever in your experience encountered a project where a portion of a county funds a project, not the entire county? Yes or no?
So the question is, in my experience, have we ever encountered a project where a portion of a county, or sir, I would expand it to a city, pays for the project and not the whole thing? The answer is yes. We encounter that all the time. We have worked with communities where flat out the county says, we're not doing anything. This is up to the beach community itself. It's up to the island to do it. That has happened. Yes, sir.
And second, in your list of funding sources, of course, all beach property owners is private. Charlotte County is listed as a public fund. Can you elaborate on that?
Because all that's
I'm trying to get into the West Charlotte County versus all of Charlotte County issue.
absolutely. So the question is that in our slide, I'm going to go back to it just so we can see it. In this slide here, secret number 5, we have both the state of Florida and Charlotte County listed as public institutions. Those are government institutions. Those are paid for and run by the public, y'all. And whereas beachfront property owners, off-beach property owners, these are private participants. And that is where that comes from.
So off-beach property owners is the distinction of West Charlotte versus the rest of Charlotte?
The question is that off-beach is a distinction between West Charlotte County and outside of West Charlotte County, and the answer is no. I'm referring to every person that does not live right on the beach.
But the ordinance that was passed saying just West County.
So,
Does that have to do with property owners? It does, because it's based on your assessed value.
right. So again, the West County ordinance that everybody is alarmed by is not intended in any way to be the end of the line as to where the funding for this project stops. It is not intended to be that. That was an existing ordinance, and as of, I understand the confusion, and I take y'all's point that that language needs to be tightened up, and that is something that will be reflected in our report and in future conversations that we have with you, the public, and with the county. No questions about it. We hear you loud and clear. Sir.
Stumptash Park is the joint Florida State Park and Charlotte County Park. And in the beach reserve, it is one of the bigger benefactors. How much of a contribution is the state making to this program to safeguard their park?
It's a great question. So the question is, how much contribution is the state of Florida going to be making because Stumptash is a state park? The answer is considerable. 39%. Darn near 40%. The state of Florida is going to pay off the top of the full program. Now again, I've said that might not be appropriated on year 1. It might not be appropriated immediately. But I do believe, given the state of the shoreline, given the history of that program, I do believe that that is something that we can count on. I do believe it is something we can count on, and that is one of the reasons why we get that number as high as it is because there is that state park that is a beneficiary of this project. I'm going to, oh, excuse me, I see a question right here. Ma'am. I'm going to, Commissioner.
And right now, we're asking for money, as I said, we just asked for money this week from our state legislature, under Iowa legislature. We got to have a plan in place to go to that. So we're trying to establish a beach renourishment program today. We have a program in place for funding. Otherwise, we go there and say, we're looking for money. We got to go for a plan. Part of it is a timing issue as well. By the time we're trying to do that, because we're asking for money now. If we don't establish this, we're losing another year. So we're asking for money now to have a plan in place to present to them.
Exactly.
We're on the ordinance, there's 2 sections in there that has not to exceed we're governed by the Florida statutes. In other words, if the program is $160 million, we can't come in and tax you $160 million. You know, there's limits to what we can do as far as assessments. There are two sections in here that references not to exceed as far as the establishment rate. So part of the reason to get the redefinition is so now we have an actual plan. We're going to Tallahassee saying, here's our plan. Let's fund it.
May I just address that also? And I understand a plan, and that ordinance will do, except for one little caveat. It says what, residents, property owners.
Right, because we at the time, we took an existing boundary, and we had a plan that we can do. We could expand it as a county-wide at that time, but it was, if you go back, because we took an existing program that was already there, called, we just renamed the Stump Pass boundaries. But the concept is to go east, not just in, again, like I said, the diet.
Except for one little caveat, that's there, and there are four more of you that might say, no, we don't want to go any further right now.
Well, we have a lot of head nodding up there, my fellow colleagues, and they all talked about a tiered approach. And I said what I said, and some of the other commissioners chimed in as well. I can't imagine any one of the commissioners putting the whole person. You know, there's another thing. I mean, I guess we don't have to do anything. I don't think we're obligated at this point to do anything.
Nope, you're not.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to solve the problem. So if the board really just wanted to be hands off and not have an conflict, we could just say, hey, it is the problem that you knew what you were getting and you go out on the beach and act like, ah, it's your problem. You knew what you were getting and you moved to that event, but I knew I didn't have to worry about beach issues. When I go to the beach, I just go. So I mean, I guess the other thing we can do is just not do anything and let the beach run people. But the idea about this was to come up with a comprehensive plan and started with this. But I get what you're saying. If I was you, I'd be saying the same thing. Hey, it's an ordinance. It's just us. And they're coming after just us. Yeah, but that's why I'm here. Listen to the people.
Yes, we do appreciate it.
Yes,
Have a rule for it, legally or in kind of amendment. And that's what you don't get. Because the way it's presented.
I mean, if we just left the Stump Pass program the way it was, what would we do? What tools are at our disposal? How would we take care of these? I don't know.
Well, Commissioner, thank you. Thank you. You know, I think that, you know, I feel very comfortable after Thursday and today acknowledging the fact that the decision to do that was poorly communicated, and our intentions were poorly communicated, because there is the belief that now that change in language has taken place, that all of a sudden West County people are in the lurch for more than they were for years. And the fact of the matter is that I do not, I'm willing to say that that was a mistake politically, but I do want you to know that I don't think any commissioner in our conversations, I don't think anyone at the county, and I can tell you with certainty that our consulting team, tasked with designing a program and working with you to create one, we hear this feedback and we understand that there's a demand among West County people to not be shouldering this burden. And this is your plan. So I think that these are incredibly important comments, and it's something that will be reflected in our funding recommendation, and we would never, ever ask the commission to proceed with any sort of contribution from West County beyond the current TU that has been in place for years. That seems to be working, by the way. So I want to say that, and I want us to also be bear in mind that this is a very, as I said kind of earlier in the presentation, these funding programs are complex. There are a lot of moving parts to this. We just went over the public and private benefits of beach shoreline maintenance. Why we do these things, how far these benefits extend,
are clearly beyond the Myakka River. I don't think there's any question about that. And in order for me to live up to our first secret, discover what is fair, I have to recommend that the burden of paying for this program extends wherever the benefit may exist, which extends beyond the Myakka River. What the commissioner was saying is that there is some maneuvering. There's some work that we have to do with the state of Florida, vis-a-vis permitting, vis-a-vis finding additional funding that went into the calculation of changing that language. And I sincerely, as someone who is tasked with getting in front of this group of people and explaining ourselves, I apologize for not being upfront with that earlier. We should have headed this off. We did not anticipate that folks would think that this was to put the burden on to West County. That was not something that we ever intended to do, and so it kind of caught us as a bit of a broadside here. But what we do want to do is find a number of special districts, the West County TU perhaps being one of them, and maybe we redraw that boundary. I heard some great ideas that we're going to study about expanding that West County TU perhaps to I-75, perhaps beyond. So we are still in the creative phase here. These ideas of expanding this to include the East County, the fact that District 5's commissioner is here today to participate and hear us means a lot. I think that we can say definitively that this county understands the importance of the public benefit of these beaches. So I would like us to proceed. I would like to continue with this presentation and explain a little bit about the 30-year cost projection, about what that will entail, and a little bit about what we are thinking as a possible district on the island itself and for the beachfront homeowners and island residents who are in terms of proximity, closest to the actual activity and closest to the benefit. One of the things, one second, sir. One of the things that I think Peter always says, and I'm going to repeat it, I'm going to steal it because it's very true, is that the only way that beach programs work in terms of building broad funding is to start at the beach. I need my beachfront homeowners. By the way, can I ask for a show of hands? How many folks here are beachfront homeowners? Okay, we've got a number of them. I need my beachfront homeowners to come in and recognize that they get a whole lot of benefit from this project and that they're willing to pay their fair share. And then I need people who are living on Manasota Key but not on the beach. Do we have anybody here living on Manasota Key, not on the beach? I need you guys to work with our beachfront people and come up with something that's fair. And then in lockstep, we will walk over the Manasota Key Bridge over into West County, and we will find West County people. Raise your hands, please. All of you guys, I need you to feel like your contribution is fair. And then I want to go to East County, and I want to ask them to contribute their piece. I think by going in that progression, we are building something that is actually politically viable. And that is very important. We have done this many times. And if we put the cart before the horse in the way that we do that, we will run into problems. And I think that's what happened here with this West County ordinance. And I acknowledge that was a miscalculation. We have a couple questions real fast. Sir, right here.
It sounds as though you're going to aim this on the property value rather than the property parcel. There's a lot of parcels out there that's going to benefit from this as well as the property values that have fallen. And it seems like, especially if they're going to sell those parcels, it seems like you might be able to get more out of parcel rather than on that.
That's a great question. The question is, are we trying to attach an assessment onto property value, an ad valorem type of system, a TU, versus perhaps a parcel-wide pro rata share type of system? To answer your question, we are going to use two different, we believe that there is a way that we can use two different systems. As I said before, we have in Charlotte County, we have MSBUs and we have MSTUs. And the wonderful thing about MSBUs is that it allows us to not assess based off of property value, but to assess based off strict benefit. And that is something that we have in mind for the island itself, for Manasota Key. And I actually, that's the next section after my 30-year cost proposal. We'll get into that. I had another question, I think, right back here. Yes, sir.
Do you have an estimated project cost that you could show us?
Yes, sir. That is my next section. I'll thank you. That's the transition of a lifetime. We'll move right along. Thank you. The question is, do we have an estimated project cost? And sure enough, we do. Now, up front, these costs are subject to change. We are still in the process of working through these numbers, but Michael Poff has generated a 30-year project progression, and it looks something like this. The total project cost is $163 million over 30 years. Stump Pass MSTU is $48 million, approximately $48,203,000. That is approximately 30% of the whole. Manasota Key, over 30 years, $72.2 million. That's about 44% of the whole. And Don Pedro Night Island is $42.6 million. That's about 26% of the whole. Now, what you can see here is that we've divided these sections up into the specific components that make up each project. So, for example, we have design and permit, we have the construction costs, we have monitoring, we have operation and maintenance. What you can see is that 90% of this program is construction, and that is a very good thing. We want to be spending money doing the actual work. We don't want to be spending money doing monitoring or doing design and permitting. Design and permitting is about 1%. Monitoring comes in about 5.7%. And let's look at that Stump Pass MSTU figure. That is a $7.9 million cost right there. Why is that number as big as it is? Well, the answer is this was a question I was emailed last night. The reason why that is so much larger than the Manasota Key or Don Pedro Night Island project, it has to do with law. That is a navigable channel, and because of the interval of dredging, that particular channel needs to be monitored more frequently, and it is expensive. Happily, or fortunately, the other aspects of that channel are certainly more affordable. What I've done here is broken this into a pie chart so we can kind of see the way the projects fit together in terms of the overall whole. About 26% Don Pedro Night Island, about 30% Stump Pass, and 44% Manasota Key. This is important. This is one way that we can think about distributing costs. Again, costs are conceptual estimates, and we are under refinement. These things can change. These things are subject to change. But I do think this helps us get an idea of how big we're talking here. Over the course of the 30-year cost projection, we understand that for our Stump Pass, we're looking at a design and permitting cost of about $300,000, construction cost of about $38.2 million, monitoring of about $7.9 million, as I just said, and an O&M of $1.7 million. You'll notice that the construction costs, 79, almost 80%, are a little bit lower. That's because of that high monitoring fee that we just have to do in order to keep that navigable pass open. This is what this looks like in a breakaway pie chart. You can see that the construction still represents the lion's share. However, that monitoring chunk is larger. In the case of Manasota Key, we're about 95% construction costs, monitoring 1.3, design and permitting 1.83, O&M 1.61% of the total. $72 million, $72.2 million over the total course. That's $2.4 million per year figure. Remember, we are not taking away any state share from these figures. This is just the raw 30-year number. And this is the way that looks. Man, that looks great. That's a lot of construction. That's what we want to see. That's real. That looks really good. 95% construction costs. We can do that. And Don Pedro Night Island is very similar. Remember, these two projects are going to be tied together in terms of the sand sourcing, in terms of the actual mechanics of how we build these beaches. And what we can see here is that we also have about 96% construction costs, a small O&M, a very small design and permitting. This project has already been designed. It's actually currently in effect. So this brings us to our overall picture. What we see here again is our total cost. But now what we can do is we know we have that 39% state cost share. And if we take our 39%, we know that we, the state of Florida, will contribute $63.5 million to the total cost. That's on an annual basis, that's $2.1 million. That leaves us with a local share of 61%, about $100 million over the full course of 30 years, $99.4 million, which if we divide that by 30, we get $3.3 million approximately per year for the whole project. And of course, our total, we get the whole project as a whole. If there was no state share, we'd be looking at $5.4 million. So off the top, that state share is a really nice get. And again, we're able to score so high by tying these three projects together. Stump Pass by itself is not going to get a state cost share. It's not going to happen. And I'll tell you something else. If we were to just do Manasota Key as a one-off project, we would collect less money from the state than if we tie them all together. So this is a good opportunity for us to slice off 39% off the top. That's a major win, I think, for this project. So what we know is that this, as I said in the beginning of this presentation, we already have a history. That TU has been in existence. It's been collecting revenues. And there's a BU on Dom Pedro Night Island, $15.71 per linear foot. And so those funds have actually been collecting revenue. And we know that they collect about $1.25 million right now per year, meaning that we have a shortfall of approximately $2.6 million. That is what we have to create. Now, rather than just creating one new entity to find that 2.6, we want to re-examine the way the whole puzzle fits together. Because we're looking at this as an integrated program. We're trying to save funds. We're trying to find something that is fair. And again, I must remind everybody, this $2.06 million shortfall is an estimate. We are still in the process of cooking up these numbers. I believe that number will actually go down. I believe that these numbers are high. These numbers do include a 20% contingency. They include inflation. So, annual revenue demand in each special district. So what we're thinking as one possible way, this is one possible way to skin the cat, is that we break this down by each specific project component. So there are three components. So the Stump Pass MSTU, which is about 30% of the pie, this is the pie right here, about 30% of the pie, that's about $876. Guess what? You're already there. That already generates that amount of money. So in this particular model, the Stump Pass MSTU does not change one little bit. The Manasota Key MSBU comprises 44.2% of the total. Again, this is fair. That's the portion that Manasota Key is actually responsible for. If we created a BU on Manasota Key, it would be responsible for generating $1.3 million per year. And we would go over to Don Pedro Night Island and generate a new BU that includes the whole island. And again, 26.1% of the total pie. We see our total pie there. That's $775,000. That equals what it is that we need to generate. Again, costs are conceptual, subject to change. I think will go down. Finally, this is the last slide of this section, but I want to show you the way the financing of these things can work. This is complex, but every 8 years, we're looking at a big bill. So what we have to keep in mind is we cannot debt finance this indefinitely. We can't pay for one beach renourishment over 30 years because we got another one coming in 8 more years after that. So we have 8 years to raise the funds for those big renourishment programs. And we have approximately 4 years to raise the funds for the Stump Pass program. What we can do is we can finance the project up front and then pay the bond down over the course of the program. Over the course of those 4 years, when we're due to have another one, we would bond again and pay that down over the course of the next 4 years. This is a responsible way to do it. Now, I should tell you, not every community wants to do that. In Topsail Beach, North Carolina, the people there said, no, thank you. We would rather not go into debt at all, raise our taxes higher. We don't want to pay for the price of borrowing money. So what they did is they just saved enough money, and paid for the beach outright. That's more aggressive. That puts more burden on the taxpayer up front. It's not always feasible, but know that if that is something that the community strongly desire, that is something that we can work with. That concludes our 30-year cost projection section. The next section, I'm going to go into that Manasota Key MSBU and kind of how we're thinking about structuring that in a way that we think is fair. But I want to pause right now. This is an opportunity to do questions and comments. I see Andy has been raising his hand back here for a few minutes. Andy?
This is a question is that maybe OCHA, back room, maybe the Commissioner, maybe and I also spoke to the state delegation about the beach erosion problem. And Commissioner Truax was the lead off speaker for what Charlotte County is taking. And what I would encourage each one of you to do here is contact, we've got two states that are Greg Studi, Denise Brinsley, and our state representative is Michael Grant. I would strongly suggest that all of you contact these state legislators and let them know what your concerns are, because they listen to their constituents. The other thing is, Tyler is absolutely correct. We've got zero chance in federal funding. However, Congressman Rudy has an office in Underwater in the old courthouse. It's up on the second floor. I've been there a number of times. Congressman Rudy was in this room last year with Commissioner Constance and with Commissioner Truax and the Army Corps of Engineers. And Congressman Rudy is trying to get passed at the federal level a change in the earmark that got changed 10 years ago, so that Congress actually can have some control of the funding coming back into their communities. The other thing is, I believe that our office on Herald newspaper has done an excellent job. Steve Riley, who is the staff writer, has done an excellent job in covering the beach erosion problem. And Steve Ballman is the editorial page editor, and we have done excellent support for the editorial board of the Sun Herald. And then I would definitely say that I believe in all of you all going because I was at that some good people. And Commissioner Doyle was here Thursday evening, as was Joanne Burton, who was our county engineer, and Sheriff Wilson, who was also here, county liaison people. And I would advise everybody, if they want to go to our Beaches and Shores Advisory Committee meeting, which is the first Thursday of the month at 9 a.m. down at Murdoch Circle. It's in the city. And just pay the fine for it. Oh, the construction service. The construction services building. And what Michael Fox is going to be there from Coastal Engineering will actually have 4 samples of sand that they're thinking of using out in the Gulf of Mexico. So that's just a quick update.
Thank you, Andy. I'm not going to. There's a lot to unpack there for folks online, but Andy's encouraging people who are interested to contact Congressman Rooney, as well as your state senators, your state legislature, to encourage, to make sure that that funding is available, that 39%, and also to encourage an expansion of the federal funding, which would ultimately, though it's certainly, I don't think, a reliable source for us off the bat, would be certainly something that would be nice for us to get our hands on down the road. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Two questions. Again, I think they're short. Talked about, assessing Minnesota key residents, which is details here. But I've never heard anything about discussing 9/11 and residents. Are they being assessed as well?
Yes, ma'am. Well, in fact, Don Pedro Night Island is currently paying into their own beach renourishment with an MSBU. Unfortunately, it comes up way short. One of the benefits of integrating these programs, so all y'all in West County have been paying into a program to put sand onto Don Pedro Night Island. They've been paying into it too. What we propose to do is to make that a little bit more fair. Currently, that BU only pulls in about $250,000 off of Don Pedro Night Island. We want to crank that up a little bit to a rate that's a little bit more equitable and consistent with what we're proposing on Manasota Key for that beach renourishment project. The question is, how much is that per household? Now, sir, that is the question of the day.
that is something that where Peter's heart attack did set us back a little bit. And we had hoped, in fact, Peter at the last workshop had said that at this workshop we would be unveiling those numbers. Unfortunately, we're a little delayed in that process. My objective is to send our cost spreadsheet with everybody's account on it. So you can look up your account and look up your place and see what you pay. That I would like to have done next month, and that will be on our website, and it will be sent out via email. It will be a big spreadsheet, and I would encourage you to get in there and play with it. Yes, ma'am.
We have an MST, and any part of that TU funds be allocated to
My understanding is that MSTU, Beach Renourishment MSTU, is currently not collecting anything. One of the things we initially, and let me repeat the question. The question is that Manasota Key currently has an MSTU for beach renourishment. Can that be used to help pay for the program? The answer is, in theory, yes, it could. What we are currently thinking is that an MSBU on Manasota Key for beach renourishment will be a more equitable way to divide beachfront residents with off-beachfront residents of the island. I think there's no question that beachfront residents benefit more greatly from the program as opposed to off-beach residents, though everyone benefits. So the problem with an MSTU is that it's an ad valorem tax. It's tied to the property value. And we don't feel that it as accurately captures the benefit of the program on the island. So what we would propose is actually implementing a new special district, an MSBU on that island. That's currently the direction we're thinking. Now, if I heard feedback that what I'm about to unveil is just not fair and that just doesn't work, we'd have to go down a different road. We'd have to look at some other options. We are open to that. Andy?
Just a point of correction, there is a street and drainage MST on Manasota Key and San Michael that already exists. The MSTU that was created last year was all at December 13th.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. So Andy corrected me that old TU that was not collecting anything, the beach renourishment, we actually got rid of because it wasn't collecting, and again, it's just not the most fair way to collect. We have found. Let me get into this Manasota Key Don Pedro Island system, and I would welcome your feedback and thoughts on it. So again, we're going to go back to this slide, one of our favorites. We know here that we have beachfront property owners and off-beachfront property owners who are beneficiaries of the project. The MSBU funding model concept would apply to Manasota Key and Don Pedro Night Island. These would be two separate districts, not one big BU. It would be two different BUs, one for each island. And I should, on Thursday, somebody correctly pointed out that when I talk about Manasota Key as a whole island, I of course do not mean the Sarasota. This program would stop at the county line, but would include from the state park up to the county line, the whole island. It would apply to both Manasota Key, one BU there, another BU on Don Pedro Night Island. All island properties would be included, not just the beachfront. Now, the beachfront would be assessed on three factors that we think are fair. One is the length of your beach. So somebody who has 100 feet of beach would pay more than somebody with 10 feet of beach. Also, your lot size. If you own 2 acres of beachfront property, you're going to pay more, contribute more, than somebody with a 1/4 acre of property. And finally, the number of dwelling units on your parcel. So if you're a condo unit, and you have 15 units, you will be scored higher than a person with a single-family home with just 1 unit. Likewise, a person with a duplex would pay higher than somebody with a single-family home, at least in terms of that factor. And that off-beach parcels and beachfront parcels would contribute to a pro rata share. Let me explain why we do this.
This is an excerpt of the spreadsheet that we are working to get out to you next month. This is what I will be emailing out to all the Mankasoto Key residents. What this will show, right up there, that MSBU annual contribution in pink, that cell is that number that we need to collect off of this island. If I go back a few slides, we know what this number is. We're thinking it's going to be approximately, it's subject to change, approximately 1.3 million. Mankasoto Key, 1.3. For Don Pedro Night Island, it's going to be 777,000, approximately. What we also know, and we know this from Michael Poff, our engineer, is that there's a storm damage reduction factor when you build a beach. That is perhaps the number one benefit of being a beachfront property owner and having this thing put in, is that it protects your property. And Michael Poff will actually give us a percentage. In this particular case, it is in fact 60%. This is an example from Okaloosa Island. This is not Mankasoto Key. This is an example of a previous project we did. So we know that storm risk reduction, that only applies to beachfront homeowners, right? Because their property is right there on the front line. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 60% of that total number, that 1.3 million in the case of Mankasoto Key. In the case of Okaloosa Island, it's 512. It's 60% of $512,000. It's approximately $307,000. So that's the amount of money we're going to look for from our beachfront homeowners. The remaining 40%, we're going to collect from everybody. We're going to divide that out among everybody via a pro rata share. And we know the number of contributors. We know the number of total accounts on the island. In this particular case, there's nearly 4,000, 3,889. And therefore, if we divide that recreational share, that $205,119, by that total number of contributors, we get our pro rata share at $52.62. That's correct, $52.62. That is so if you were a property owner on Okaloosa Island and you were not on the beachfront, you would pay $52.62. That would be your contribution. If you were a beachfront property owner, you would fall into this section down here. So in addition to your pro rata share, in addition to your $52.62, we would score your property. And we would say, factor one, how many acres do you have? In the case of the Aqua Villa, we see that they have 0.72 acres. We score that as a tenth of an acre equals 1 point. That means that they get 7.21 points. Factor two, number of units. Aqua Villa is a condo. There's 24 condominium units in the Aqua Villa. That equals 24 points. And finally, we're going to look at their beachfront footage. There's 240 feet of beachfront at the Aqua Villa. That's how much they own. We're going to give that 24 points. 10 feet of beach equals 1 point. And what we do is we're going to score the entire beach. And what we can do is we're going to determine the price per point. We know how much money we want to pull off the beach. We know how many total points there are. We can count the number of beachfront footage. We can count the number of acres. And we can count the number of units. We do not care, in this particular model, how nice your place is, how nice your unit is. We don't care if you have a pool. We don't care if you have a new paint job. Does not matter. We care about the number of units, number of front footage, and the number of acres. These are quantifiable factors that in some way, shape, or form approximate value of these beach houses and condos. And what we're able to do is score this thing up. So we know that Aqua Villa scored 55.21 points. And what we're able to do is come up with a number, a storm risk reduction for the entire parcel. This is all units now. This is not for a single person. That's $2,484 per unit. That's $103 per unit. You add that to your pro rata share. So $52.62 again, plus $103.51. And the total contribution for this particular condo owner at the Aqua Villa is $156.13. Now I can tell you that this is a much lower number and there's more contributors on Okaloosa Island than on Manasota Key. So these numbers are a little bit lower than what you can expect from Manasota Key. However, I believe that this system is pretty darn fair in distributing the load from the beachfront on Manasota Key to non-beachfront. It puts 60% of the burden right there on the beach where there are fewer people, but where there's the most benefit. And we've had tremendous success with this model. Yeah, I do believe that this represents a fair way to slice the pie. One of the things about this unit, or this MSBU, this model, is that it requires a lot of data collection. That's why we're not quite ready, sir, to unveil the price. Though if you want to come up and if anybody wants to talk to me after the meeting, I'd be more than happy to kind of show you where we are in this process. But we are in the process of scoring this beach, studying up and down the beach, every single beachfront parcel, counting up the number of units, counting the beachfront footage, counting the acreage. We've got to do this for Manasota Key and Don Pedro Night Island. And for those of you, I'm sure all of you who are familiar, there are some crazy, interesting little parcels that have been subdivided and carved into the most interesting little ways possible. So we are a little bit behind schedule on that, but we hope to get this finished in the next month or so and have it presented to everyone who wants to see it next month. Once we get that spreadsheet built, we'll be able to play with the model. We'll be able to test it. We'll be able to see if it's affordable, see if it's workable. We also know that all of our prices right now have been contingent on that 39% state share. Now, these numbers can change. The state of Florida ultimately controls that figure. So Michael Poff is in the process of submitting those forms to the state and working with them, communicating with them on exactly how that state share might work. Right now, we believe that 39% is something that I spoke with him yesterday, and he told me that that 39% is pretty solid. He's still in the process of talking with them, but he does not believe it will change. This is an important one for today's meeting and workshop 3. We hear you loud and clear about expanding this east of the Myakka River. And that is something that we are going to be working very hard to do over the next month. And of course, if we are able to do that and expand this program, that means that we distribute the pain more greatly and it becomes more affordable for everyone. And we are extremely interested in doing that. And of course, we want to find other revenues. There was a question about parking revenue. There's questions about Fed tax revenue. There are questions about other sources of funding. We want to find, if there is another source of funding, even if it's a small contribution, we want that in this program. Because again, the more robust, the more different types of funding sources we can rely upon, the more stable this will be. And that actually reminds me about this MSBU model. One of the things that the BU does, because it is not tied to property values, is that it weathers storms. When a storm hits, property values can go down. But this MSBU model does not care. It still wants to know how many units you got, how many front footage of beach do you have, and what's your acreage. So it's resilient to storms. And that is extremely important when you're trying to raise funds in the wake of an event. So, again, it says that there will be a workshop in February. I do not believe we will actually have a workshop next month. I will be releasing this data via email, electronically, and on our website. However, early March, we are looking to do another workshop. The time and date are still TBD. We're thinking we'll continue with this model that we've used so far of doing a Thursday evening workshop and then a Saturday daytime workshop to make sure everybody has an opportunity to attend at least one. We will also continue to broadcast these online. I know that there are a number of seasonal residents here, and if for whatever reason you decided to head back up north early, you'd be able to participate and follow along online. It's very important to us that we hear your thoughts and get your opinions as to how we are doing. Again, every community is different. We acknowledge the fact that what has worked in Okaloosa Island, what has worked in Topsail Beach, North Carolina, won't necessarily work here. And we recognize that we have a lot more work to do. There's a lot more communicating. There's a lot more reaching out to folks and more broadly in the county. But I do believe we're off to a really good start. And I thank everyone who has participated and been here. It's because of your participation that we'll be able to create a plan that works. I can't, along with Peter and Lily, we cannot go back to Austin and cook up a viable plan for you that you're going to love and think is your own. That's just not the way it works. We need your participation, so thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here as well. And now it's time. I would love to open this up for continued discussion. We have about 6 more minutes until 3. So please feel free to ask any questions, and we'll do that now. Yes, sir. So the question is, are we thinking about 4 special districts? Currently, as everyone knows, we have proposed 3. The boundaries of the Stump Pass TU are, I think right now we have 3. There are 3 special districts that we propose. Those BUs, the reason why you're thinking that there's 4 is because those BUs divide Manasota Key and Don Pedro Night Island excuse me, into beachfront and non-beachfront. But that is one special district.
So beachfront and non-beachfront.
That's correct. So one BU breaks that down into 60% and 40%. 60% from the beachfront, 40% from the island as a whole.
All of Minnesota Key would pay 60%.
All of Manasota Key would pay 40%. Beachfront would pay 60%.
What if you go out to the county line? Is there a portion of that amount is 40%?
So off the top, if we're able to find other revenue sources to go into the beach funding program off the top, it just lowers that total on down. So if we were able to find $500,000 to add to the program, we get to lower the program. But what I would say that we should continue is that cost distribution model where 44% of the project comes from Manasota Key, because that is, again, fair. And that is what we're at the end of the day looking for. So about 30%. That's correct. That's correct. Any sort of broader county fund, I would think, would come in off the top. It would go in to benefit the beach management program as a whole.
So if you live like 2 houses long, Minnesota Key, you're paying what rate? You're paying the rate of the rest of the county.
Well, so in fact, as you know, the West County TU includes Manasota Key and Don Pedro Night Island as well. So for folks on the Key, you would have the BU, you would have the TU under your belt, and if there was any sort of additional assessment countywide, you could consider that something that you would be paying into as well, though it would be a very small amount. Yes, ma'am.
Is the Fed tax, do they look at where the Fed tax comes from?
Oh, yeah.
On the Key, on the beach, rental property, I looked up the figures today. We collected $7,000 for Fed tax. I know that people that rent our place on the beach aren't going to baseball stadium, which pay for the Fed taxes.
Right.
And that money be allocated. On the Key from the Fed tax to.
One of the things that we are in conversation with right now is trying to figure out how we can work with the current budget of that med tax, which, as I pointed out, till 2028, there's 2 points of revenue going to that stadium. It's been spoken. So this is a charged discussion. What I would say is that we do believe that what we do know from the report, that the tourism development report, is that I believe 60% of the total med tax revenues come from West County. We know that. And we also know that, and we know why. It is because of rentals, both bay and beachfront, that contribute to that fund rate. So your point is extremely well taken. I think it's something that we all know intrinsically, that tourism in Charlotte County is driven by the beach. I think that is something, and boy, does it seem to make sense to have a way to get some of those funds to come back to benefit the beach. It does absolutely make sense. I hear you on that. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. I'm happy to talk with anybody one-on-one after. Oh, we have some online questions. Let's see. I am on the line, unable to hear any conversation. Okay, sorry about that. I bet this is the same woman that asked these questions on Thursday. I am a Minnesota Key Beach owner. Okay. I'm on board. Okay, so I think that's it. Okay. Well, thank you everybody online for participating. Thank you everybody here for participating. Please feel free to email or call with any questions. All right.
Well done.
Thank you.